Hi, good evening, everybody. Just before we start, just some quick upcoming program, just to share some upcoming programs happening this week. Tomorrow evening from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., Miss Cecilia Song will commence teaching the module all about karma, which is a module under the FPMT study program, Discovering Buddhism. And this Sunday, on the 11th of January, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Geshe will be teaching the topic on how to face death without fear. And we look forward to seeing you here. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. Can you hear there? Backside? Yeah, okay. So, again, we will start with a short breathing meditations to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment present. And then we try to generate a positive intention for being here before we start the talk, okay? Let go of any stiffness, tension in your body and mind. Try to keep yourself comfortable, relaxed. Breathe in and out naturally. And keep your attention or the mind watching the breath mindfully. Once your mind has settled down, quiet in moment present, then we can try to reflect and contemplate that as long as we in our mind is not free from all those negative, disturbing negative emotions, such as anger, attachments, jealousy, pride, ignorance, so forth. Regardless of what our external conditions are, we will always find something to complain about. We will always find something to be unhappy about. We will always find something that makes us disturb our mind, agitate our mind. And make us unhappy, miserable. On the other hand, if we are free from those disturbing negative emotions, then even when external conditions are not the best, we can still find peace, calmness, peacefulness in our heart, in our mind. We will always find reason to be gratitude, joyful, happiness. Therefore, whether we become miserable or joyful, happy, it mainly depends on our state of mind, not the external conditions. Whether we will have miserable life or whether we will have more peaceful, happy life, it depends on our state of mind, primarily. Therefore, It is extremely important to pay more attention to the mind. And working with our mind to reduce and to eliminate those disturbing negative emotions, the defilements. And to cultivate and improve those helpful, positive state of minds, such as true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, wisdom, so forth. And to be able to do that, just by wishing and praying, is not going to change our mind. We need to change through practice, correct contemplation, meditation practice. And we need to practice continuously, consistently. And for that, we need to continue to learn, study, hear about those practices, teachings. Therefore, I'm going to listen to the talk. And not only listening, but if there is anything that one find helpful, beneficial, then trying to integrate, apply in our practice and life as much as possible. We take those teachings not only on the cushions here, but out of the cushions, out of this hall, in our home, in our workplace, all the time. And trying to integrate, apply, and practice all the time. By all of us coming here together, giving our precious time, energy, resources, may all of this become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be most and greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient beings in the most skillful way, according to the need of each and every sentient beings. Okay.
Please turn to page 34 of the Red Prayer Book, Taking Refuge and Generating Bodhicitta. We will recite this 3 times. Sangye chodang soki
Soki
chonam
chonam
la
la
chanchu
chanchu
padu
padu
dani
dani
kyab
kyapsu
suchi
che
dagi
dagi
jin soki
jinso
be
gibe
sonam
sonam ki
ki jola
jola
penche
penje
sangye
sangye
jopa
dupa
sho Sangye chodang
chodam
soki
soki
chonam
chonam
la
la
chanchu
chanchu
padu
padu
dani
dani
kyab
kyapsu
suchi
che
dagi
dagi
jin
jinso
soki be
gibe
sonam
sonam
ki
ki
jola
jola
penche
penje
sangye
sangye
jopa
dupa
sho Sangye chodang
chodam
soki
soki
chonam
chonam
la
la
chanchu
chanchu
padu
padu
dani
dani
kyab
kyapsu
suchi Dagi
dagi
jin
jinso
soki be
gibe
sonam
sonam
ki
ki
jola
jola
penche
penje
sangye
sangye
jopa
dupa.
sho
So again, welcome everyone, and today is the second sessions for these particular topics, letting go of letting go, renunciations. We talk about what to let go of, what to renounce, what to give up, what are we renouncing, what we are giving, what we are letting go is something not external, is something internal. And we talk about on that, the attachments. What we renounce is the attachments. What we let go of is attachments. What we give up is the attachments. By giving up the attachments, then we can develop these pure renunciations, the inspiration, the wish to achieve, nirvana sincerely from the depth of our heart, that pure renunciations. So in terms of letting go or giving the attachments, as Lama Tsongkhapa explained in his three principal aspects of the path, letting go of attachment of this life and letting go of attachment of the futures, as well as appearance and graspings and future lives. So letting go of attachment in this life and the experience and excellence of this life, as well as letting go of attachment to the future life, future excellent, future better experiences. So last week we talked a little bit about, more letting go of attachment to this life. And when we try to condense that, and it's basically more of letting go of attachment to, material things or the wealth, and even you are not attached to material things and wealth, sometimes you could be attached to praise. So also letting go of being attached to praise. Sometimes we might not be attached to wealth, material things, praise, but we could be attached to reputation, fame. Sometimes people spend a lot of energy, resource to have those kind of fame because they are attached to that fame. So also learning to let go of that attachment to the fame as well. And sometimes we might not be attached to even the fame, but we could be attached to happiness. And again, even the attachment to happiness can be a problem. And so again, letting go of attachment to even the happiness. And when we let go of those attachments, then we don't have strong aversions to the opposite of that. If you don't have attachment to the gain in material wealth, then you don't have aversions to not gaining it or losing it. If you don't have aversions towards losing or not getting it, then, we wouldn't have to deal with a lot of worry and fear. And same, if we don't have attachment to praise, we wouldn't have so much dislike or aversion to criticisms. If we don't have strong aversions and dislike to criticism, when someone criticizes, it wouldn't be a big problem. You can take it easily without being so disturbed, so agitated, so unhappy, We can deal with much more ease and openness with criticism. But when you have strong aversion to that, then it becomes painful. When someone criticizes you, it becomes painful, hurtful. And then we experience suffering, pain from that. Why we have why we are so strong, painful when we encounter that, because we have strong dislike, we have strong aversion towards that. And we have strong aversion to that because we have a strong attachment to the opposite of that praise. Because we are attached to people praising us all the time, wanting the praise, not the criticisms. And same thing, when you have strong attachments to fame, then again, or reputations, then we have strong dislike and aversion, the opposite of that, not having fame, having bad reputations, or becoming insignificant, unknown, When we have a attachment to reputation, fame is like someone you want to be known, something special, something important, known. And because of that, you will have aversion to the opposite of that when you become insignificant or unimportant and not known, or not only that, sometimes even maybe bad reputations. And because of that, when those things happen, again, we are hurt, when we feel pain and sufferings. So, that is what, the reason why in our life, why we suffer so much is because of that. Attachment to the four and aversion to the opposite of those four. And due to that, it really concerns, then, we experience a lot of pain and sufferings in our life. And not only we experience a lot of pain and sufferings, but also because of that, then we tend to also hurt and harm others because of our mind being feeling hurt, harm, pain, disturbed, agitated. And then, so we experience pain and we create pain to others. We experience pain and we bring pain to others. And because of that. So it is about, letting go of attachments to those four and letting go of aversion to those other four, instead learning to have more equanimity to all those eight, whatever happens. Being more open, accepting, and being okay, whatever, So that is. So anyway, so that is. And then in terms of letting go of attachment to the future's life, As long as we are in samsara, it doesn't matter where you are. You are never free from the sufferings. You are never free from the sufferings. As long as we are in samsara, as we are not free from the samsara, it doesn't matter what rebirth you have. Whatever realm you are in, different realms, whatever realm you are, whatever rebirth you have, you are never free from samsara. And therefore, we will continue to experience pain and sufferings. If we are born in a lower realms, in some lower realms, there is intense suffering of pain, intense suffering of heat, and intense suffering of cold. In some realms, intense suffering of hunger and thirsty. And in some realms, such as animal realms, they have all the suffering that we have in human realms. The suffering of birth, sickness, aging, and death, not getting what they want, encountering what they do not want. On top of that, then suffering of ignorance. The ignorance, in a sense, the suffering of the ignorance of not knowing the Dharma. Not knowing the Dharma, mainly. In certain areas, especially with the senses, some of them are much better than us. Some of the animals have incredible ability to hear their hearing sense from long distance. Some to be able to see, even at very small, tiny from long distance. Some of them are able to smell from a very long distance. When it comes to the sense consciousness, senses, sometimes they have better ability than us. But when it comes to the mental consciousness, especially the ability to reasoning, then that is where we human beings have better ability. And for Dharma practice, is using that mind, to really practice the Dharma deeply, profoundly, then it is using that the mind that is able to use rationalizing, reasoning, logics, all of that. And that is why the animals, therefore, in animal, the suffering of that. And then as human beings, we all know, suffering of birth. When the child is born, it isn't always easy. The good thing is we don't remember. Sometimes good things. Sometimes we feel it would be great if we have great memories. Remember everything. That could be very painful. A lot of those things, sometimes the pain that we might have gone through in the mother's womb for those 9 months, living that very tiny place, darkness. And then coming out at the birth, totally new environment, unable to speak, unable to understand, unable to communicate. So, suffering of, birth, suffering of sickness, we all go through a certain level of sickness. Of course, some people have some more challenging illness. Some have less challenging, but still everyone go through some illness, sickness in their life at certain times. Nobody seems to be immune from that. I don't think there has anyone who has been in this world who have never experienced any little bit of illness that I'm not aware of, And if we are lucky to live long, the suffering of aging. We can do all surgery and everything to look young, okay? But that doesn't change your body breaking down, your ability breaking down, becoming more weak. You might look young because of your surgery, but inside your organs, your body, your bones, everything is not as strong as before. It's becoming more and more weak. Also, our mind is not as sharp as before. So, the pain and suffering that we deal with, that physical challenges and mental challenges that come with the agings. And the suffering of finally death. Anyone who is in good mental state want to die. But we have no choice. Once you are born in samsara, then you have to face the reality of death and the suffering of death, the suffering of your own death, the suffering of facing death of our loved ones, dear ones, near ones. And then, of course, many others challenges, suffering that come in between, not being able to get what we want all the time, having to encounter, having to face a lot of things, a lot of situations, a lot of experiences that we don't want, we don't wish, we try to avoid, not being able to avoid and having to encounter them, and not being able to achieve and get what we want. And so, so then again there is that sufferings. And then, in some other realms, even they don't have suffering like the lower realms, even suffering like us, the suffering of pain, but they still have certain other level of sufferings. The suffering of, in some, the suffering of jealousy, and then the suffering of, in fight with others, and through in the fight, getting killed, cut, all of that, And in some, even though there is no such sufferings, but there is sufferings of, having to deal with the sign of death and the futures. So, and then some, even though there is no such suffering, but still, there is suffering of all pervasive. No one is free from the suffering of all pervasive. And that is why also is known as all pervasive, because it pervades in all the realms, in all sentient beings. So when we talk about the suffering nature of the samsara, suffering, when we talk about suffering, when Buddha talked about the first noble truth, that samsaric life is the nature of sufferings. It doesn't mean pain, physical pain, doesn't necessarily mean physical pain and emotional pain. That is only one kind of suffering, the suffering of pain. But also, being dissatisfied is another form of sufferings. When you are dissatisfied, it's a suffering because you feel empty, something lacking, unfulfilled. Unfulfilled, something missing. Something missing, something lacking. That kind of empty, that dissatisfaction mind, that dissatisfied mind itself is a sufferings. So suffering has to, when we talk about sufferings, it doesn't mean physical pain and emotional pain, This dissatisfaction is also a pain, suffering. And it doesn't even have with dissatisfactions. The very, your experience, your life, your existence is under the control of another force that itself is suffering when you don't have freedom, when you lose your freedom. And that is what all-pervasive suffering is. When any life or existence or rebirth that is under the control of the delusion and karma, where you have no control, but some other force, the delusion, karma, has the control over that, that itself is a suffering. That means we are the prisoner. Being prisoner is the sufferings. Not having the freedom, but instead becoming the prisoner is the sufferings. So therefore, that being the case, even in the future, even we are born as a human beings or another higher rebirth where they don't have the, so much sufferings. Even let's say, our life, even we have relatively good health throughout our life. We don't struggle with our financial, we don't have to struggle. And maybe we might have even good relationship. If that happens, we would think, wow, that is what I want to be, good relationship, good financial situations, securities, good health, fame, people liking you. So then we might think, what can I ask more? So that might, we might be attached to such, that might be our object of attachment to have such life in the future. That could be something we inspire, something we are attached to. And then, that is, we are talking to human, or maybe even God realms. Sometimes we might be attached to them. Some of the God realms. So again, even we have that kind of, even we are born in such rebirth with such situations, still is a sufferings. It's still a sufferings. That kind is only temporary relief, it's not permanent relief. When you have good health, that good health is not permanent. So that is not permanent relief. That could change anytime. When you have good relationship, that is also not permanent. That could change. Even you have a good financial situation at the moment, even that is not permanent. That could change. Even people like you at the moment, or even that is not permanent. Things could change. Even you have good fame, reputations, that is not permanent. That could change. So whatever, even good things are happening is not permanent. Could change. Even in one lifetime, you have good situation where it didn't change much from good to worse, but still that change in the next lifetime. There's no guarantee that the next life you will have same or better. Because even though we like to have similar or even better in the next life, if we have the choice, but we have no control. So it's not about your choice. It's about what I want to be, not want to be. It is about what kind of cause and conditions I have created, the karma, karmic conditions. It depends on what kind of cause and conditions I've created, the karmic condition I've created. It follows that. It doesn't follow what I want and what I don't want. What I wish, what I don't wish. And therefore, so what it shows is that we have no control. Karma controls us. So therefore, there's no guarantee. So therefore, as long as we are not free from the samsara, as long as we are not free from the karma, contaminated karma, and the delusions, there is never lasting peace, lasting happiness, lasting joy, lasting relief. Whatever joy you might have is fleeting, temporary. Whatever relief you have is fleeting, temporary. That could change anytime. If not this life, next life. And therefore, with that understanding, so then we try to get not attached to any of the samsaric birth or samsaric excellence and experience. The problem is, we don't recognize that we are in prison. We don't recognize we are in samsara, even though sometimes we talk all the time, say word, because if we really understand that what samsara is and that we are in that samsara, we would feel so much urgency and inspire energy to get out of that. But we are so relaxed in samsara, so comfortable with samsara, isn't it? We are very comfortable with samsara, and relax. Doesn't feel like I need to get out of samsara. Feel like, oh, samsara is not too bad. When things go challenging, then we feel, oh, it's bad. When you have really bad health issues, when you have a very strong conflict in relationships, when you struggle financially, job, and then you feel, oh, samsara is horrible. You see, oh, this is what samsara is horrible. But when all these things improve, oh, samsara is nice. Samsara not too bad. I don't mind that. I'm okay with that. It doesn't feel like that sense of urgency or sense of what I need to get out of the samsara. We feel quite comfortable with the samsara. And you know, what is that shows? That shows, we haven't really understood deeply what the samsara is. It's like you are in a prison, okay? You are in a prison. When you are in prison, and then there are days when they don't torture you. And there are days where they torture you. When you are torturing you, you feel like, oh, it's horrible, I need to get out of it. And there are times when they torture you, then there is some relief, temporary relief. And then you feel, oh, it's okay. You don't need to get out of there because you have that temporary relief. Not knowing that could change. That is only temporary relief. But if you know you are still in prisons, even you are not being tortured and not at the moment, but as long as you know you don't have freedom, as long as then you will be always thinking and trying to get out of that prison. Whatever way you can, if there is any way that, that you could get out of that prison, you will try to find all the options, all the possibility, how to get out of that prison. Because you are in that prison. Even when they are not torturing you, even when they are being nice, even when you are being served well, but as well, prisons, you want to get out of there. And you will try all your best to get out of there. And for us at the moment, we don't feel like we are in prisons. Only when things get bad, then we feel like I'm in samsara, and that is what samsara is. Samsara is painful, sufferings. But when things are not so bad, then we forget that we are in the prisons. And then we don't feel that we need to get out of that. And we don't feel that urgency, sense of, and that is where. And so therefore, that is the where we have to meditate and contemplate, when you think of the nature of samsara, being the nature of samsara is suffering. A lot of time we only think the pain itself. But actually we have to contemplate, as long as we are not free from the contaminated karma and the delusions, that itself is the suffering. Because That means we are the prisoner of the delusions and the karma. We have no control, but we have been controlled by this force of karma and the delusions. And when you are being controlled by karma and delusions, you never know where you will end up. From best place to the worst place. You cannot even imagine. Is the jailer, or I don't know, the people who run the prisons, or the judge, or they have the power to send you wherever, transfer wherever they want. You have no freedoms. So understanding that is very important to develop sense of pure renunciation from the whole samsara and not being attached to even these and futures, the samsaric pleasure or samsaric existence or samsaric excellence. No matter how best in the samsara, even the best of samsara, even you experience the best of samsara, still you are still prisoner. Still you are the prisoner. It's like you are in one of the best prison. That's all it is. Sometimes we are in bad prisons, worse prison, and sometimes we are in the best prisons. Sometimes we are in a prison who is in between, but still prisoner, still not free from the prisons. And that we can see it is not something, abstract ideas, We know, if we check ourselves. I have no control about what I'm going to happen tomorrow in terms of my health. Of course, I can try to keep as healthy by living, healthy lifestyle, doing the exercise, eating the right food, and all of this. That's all I can do. But tomorrow, then something can happen. Even the people who try to live best, they get sick. They do everything right to be healthy. Everything right that the science, the doctor prescribe them how to be healthy. They do everything right, still they can get illness. What does that show? You have no control in a one. You have only very little control. You don't have full control. Same in a relationship. We try to keep our relationship well, whether it's between two persons, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whether it's parent, children, whether it's among siblings, whether it's between, friends, colleagues. Even you try to keep those relations well, you try to everything, whatever those advice, people who are expert in that, who give you all the advice how to still, even doing all the right thing, that still things can get out of control. You might not have that. Same with financial situations. Because we cannot predict. We don't know what is going to happen. And so therefore what it shows is actually, we don't have control. Even though we like to feel we have control, isn't it? We like to feel that we have control over our life. But the fact and reality is not at the moment, as long as you have not control over your karma and the delusions. Of course, someone who have free from the karma and the delusions, then they can have control. Then they can make choice. I want to be born here, there, in this part of the country, in this planet, in this part of the country, in these families, and this and that. They might have that ability to do that. But for ordinary sentient beings who doesn't have control over their delusion and karma, they don't have that choice. So in our life, that is, we like to feel we have control, but reality, we don't have full control. And same with delusions. We are controlled by our mind, and our mind is controlled by the delusions. At this point, it doesn't have to be that all the time. We can change that, but at the moment, it is like that. We don't want to get angry, you know. We don't want to get upset. We don't want to get impatient. We try. We are learning how not to get upset, frustration, impatient, angry. Not only we learn, we are trying to meditate, we are trying to practice not to get upset, frustrated, impatient, angry. But we fail sometimes. Even with that, sometimes we get frustrated. Sometimes we get impatient. Sometimes we get upset, angry. What does that show? That means we don't have control. If I have control, I don't want to be in that state, so I shouldn't be experiencing that. You know? Because it's not something I want to experience. It's not something I want to be in that state. It's because it's a state that I don't want to be, and I'm trying not to be it. If I have control, I wouldn't be in that state. But we find ourselves in those states again and again, time to time. Why? Because at the moment we haven't gained control over our mind. Our mind has not gained control over those delusions. And as long as we have the delusions, you know, then the moment those delusions arises, that very moment, your mind is disturbed, agitated, your peaceful mind is gone. The moment that one of those afflictive emotions arises. Sometime I don't know is actually the right expression or word, but sometimes I call instant karma. Instant karma is that immediately you experience disturbed mind. The moment anger arises, the moment jealousy arises, the moment frustration arises, all of those afflictive emotions, instantly in that very moment, whatever peace, calm you are feeling there before is gone. It's gone. That very moment, we don't have to think futures, even that very moment, you know. Before you are enjoying your meal with and having a fun with your friends, enjoying meal, having a fun talk, and something happens and your mind is disturbed, angry, and then gone. The enjoyment is gone. No more fun there anymore. No more fun in the food, no more fun in the talk, no more fun. All this gone. In that instantly, because of the moment of that anger, frustration, upset. That is how delusions, And when we have those delusions, we will continue to create karma continuously. No matter how much we are purified, there's never ending. It's like, today all the leaves fall and you clean, and next day again the wind comes and again the leaves fall, and again you clean, again leaf falls, again you clean, it never ending. Similar like that. Through purification, even we have been able to purify all the negative karma since we have accumulated from beginning even up to now. But as of your delusion, you will create new karma. As long as you are delusion, you create new karma. You continue to create new karma. New negative karma, new contaminated karma. And as a result of such karma, then, again, we experience more pain, sufferings in the futures. Also, when we don't overcome the delusions, and when we experience those delusions more and more, our mind becomes more and more habit to that, more habitual patterns. And then it becomes more and more difficult to get rid of them. Then it becomes more and more difficult to get rid of them because your mind has become so used to that, so familiar with that. It becomes almost automatic, impulse. You don't have to, because of that familiarity, the strong imprint with that familiarity. And so that is, that is how destructive. So there, with that understanding, then, we have to understand, as long as your being, your birth or your rebirth is under the control of the delusion karma, there's no real permanent relief, there's no real joy, happiness, With that understanding, once we have that understanding, then we become less attached to them. Then we become less attached to them. No matter how great they look, you become less attachment to them. No matter how wonderful they look, no matter how wonderful, but you will still be not attached to it because you understand, In reality, the nature of that is not that those objects cannot give us permanent relief, permanent joy, permanent happiness, real happiness, by understanding it only, so then you get less attached to that. And when we are less attached to all of that, then, the inspirations or the wish for true liberations then arises more strongly from more depth of your heart. more profoundly. At the moment, even though we talk about liberations, but still we are kind of very distracted in the samsara. Still very distracted in samsara, still chasing after the samsara excellence, isn't it? We are not chasing for the nirvana, we are still chasing for the samsara excellence. Check it out, what you are chasing after every day. What is the object of what you are chasing, running after? Is still samsaric pleasure, is still samsaric excellence. So if we are still chasing, even after we have studied, learned, and practiced, if we are still chasing after this samsaric excellence, samsaric pleasures, and all of that, what does that show? That we haven't understood profoundly or deeply, the nature of the samsara, the true nature of the samsara, And in order to understand true nature of samsara, then that is where, as I mentioned before, we have to meditate, contemplate, and spend more time on this, about being the prisoner of the delusion and karma, and how, as long as we are the prisoner of that delusion, karma, we can never have real happiness, true happiness. At the moment, we always feel it's almost like repeating same thing, wishing is a different result. Previous relationship I didn't found good, but this relation, maybe I might be able to find better, to find out the same thing. Again, those two are bad, but third one, this will be different. And that will be the similar, doing the same thing, repeating the same thing, wishing different result. Even though we have been getting the same result, but again, somehow, we are somehow kind of deluded and still wishing maybe this time the result will be different. But the result will be because you have already experienced that, and it's the same result. And that is the thing, So, you had the ice cream and you enjoy, then you got a little bit, oh, I shouldn't have it. I had too much sugar, I shouldn't have it. Again, next time, same things. And that is kind of in our life, most things like that, we keep on doing that. So, to really develop the pure renunciation mind, pure renounce mind, that is not attached to any of the samsaric excellence or the best of samsara pleasure or enjoyment or samsaric, excellent best. Instead, turn your mind away from that and turn your mind towards the liberations, true, lasting happiness. To be able to turn your mind towards that and to walk towards that, then is important to understand no matter what kind of rebirth you have, no matter which realms you are rebirth, as long as we are not free from the samsara and karma, you are not free from the suffering, you are not free from the prisons of the samsara, and that you can never have lasting happiness, peace by following that. And that, again, as we mentioned before, to be able to understand that on more deeper level, profound level, on experience level, to bring that intellectual understanding into the experiential understanding through the practice, meditation, contemplations. So, that is about letting go of renunciations, If we follow the attachments, it can never lead you to true satisfaction. There are many different, it only lead, in long term, it only lead you to destructions, more disappointment, more unhappy, and more distractions, In the scriptures, there are many different examples that are given, Animal or cow being attached to the very small green grass by the cliff and then falling and dying because of that attachment to that small grass by the cliff, Nowadays, sometimes, people are attached to the perfect photo, They want to have the right, and they go in a very cliff to get the best pictures. And, there are so many stories, in like Grand Canyon and other places, people go to very, very side to get and then the attachment to this perfect pictures lead to end of their life. And examples that by following the attachment that can never give you true satisfactions is many different examples that give. When you're thirsty, to quench the thirsty, if you drink a salty water, temporarily at the very first moment you might feel better because you are feeling thirsty, and then you are able to drink something. But then it only increase, make it more thirsty because of that salted water. And so by keeping on drinking that salty water again and again, to quench that, you can never reach to a point where you say now you are not thirsty anymore by being able to drink, if you keep on drinking the salty water. Same way, in order to find contentment or satisfactions, fulfillment by following attachment, if you want to reach a point where you feel content, satisfied, and happy by following an attachment, you can never reach to that point. By following attachment, you can never lead to that point. It's like drinking salty water in order to quench the thirsty. But when you give up attachments, then you can find the true contentment, true satisfactions, true fulfillment, joy, you know. In terms of distractions, another example Nagarjuna gave, you know, when you become itch due to some rash or something, you know, and when you're itching, you know, and if you scratch, it gives you little relief, nice feeling. But again, it started to itching, and you started to scratch because it gives you a little bit of nice feelings. At the end, then it started to bleed because you scratch too much. So he said that the best is not to have that rash. Instead of trying to satisfy with scratching, feel good by scratching, if you don't have to scratch at all, that will be the best. And so therefore, not having the attachment is the best contentment, the best joy, best happiness. Trying to find joy and happiness by following the attachment is only temporary, like this, like scratching. But at the end, it only harm and it only hurt you even more. So with all this reflection, contemplation, and understanding, you know, then one try to give up attachments, you know, attachment to the pleasure of this life, excellence of this life, as well as pleasure and happiness, or excellence of futures. Basically, you know, letting go of attachment to any samsaric pleasure, any samsaric excellence, and not being attached at all. And then turning your mind towards the lasting, true, everlasting happiness, peace, the liberation, the nirvana. So with that, maybe I will take some questions, if there's some questions, if anyone has any questions. Anyone has any questions? Please, yes, James.
Thank you for teaching. I have one rather long question. Okay, so you were saying that normal sentient beings cannot control the rebirth, right? Rebirth.
Yeah, as long as you are not free from the delusion and karma.
Okay, so you also mentioned that if you're able to control your mind, you're able to choose how you want to rebirth, right? So what is the relationship between being able to control the mind and the karma?
When we are free from the delusions, when there is no more influence of the delusions, when there is no more delusions or influence of the delusions, you know, then you are able to control your mind. Your mind is not controlled by the delusions anymore and not influenced by the delusion anymore. Instead, you know, you're able to, you know, drive your mind where you want. and direct where you want, instead of being directed by another force, such as delusions. And when you are no more delusions, then you don't create any more new karma, negative karma, contaminated karma. There's no more creation, no more creation of karma. And previous karma, you will be able to purify through the practice. And so therefore, now there's no more also control by the delusions, karma as well. Yeah? Any others?
Hi, can I ask a question regarding destructive emotions?
Yes, please.
So does destructive emotions equals to delusions?
Delusions. Yes, I think in Sanskrit, klasha, in Tibetan we call nyomo, and in English, I think there are many different translations used by different translators describing the same. And sometimes some translator or teacher use defilements. Some teachers, translator use afflictive emotions, and then destructive emotions, that which I use, at the moment, So in that sense, they mean same. Delusion, defilements, destructive emotions is referring to the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes different teachers or translators might use those different terms, but they are referring to the same thing. Yeah. Yes, please, here. Oh, okay.
Thank you for sharing. So if we do not want to suffer anymore, the only way is to get liberation, right? In that sense, to follow the teaching from the Buddha. That is the only way to not get suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate. But how do we reach that level? Because it seems so difficult for us to even control like a little bit, and once a distraction comes, we get affected emotionally. So to our daily life, how do we start first?
Okay. Of course, to free from all kind of suffering permanently, then until we achieve nirvana, there's no way to have that permanent peace or freedom from the samsara, suffering permanently. Definitely there is no way. Of course, while in samsara, still there are practice method that can help us to reduce the sufferings, by changing our karma, by trying to purify our karma, previous negative karma, by trying to create new positive karma through different practices, training the mind and so forth, we can reduce the level of the sufferings. We can try to improve the level of the happiness within the samsara. But if you want to have, suffering permanently, relief permanently, and to have not temporary relief and happiness, but lasting peace and happiness, then there is no way then achieve the nirvana, liberations. And of course, it might not be so easy to achieve that. sometimes it can also depend on the individuals, due to their past imprint, karmas, exposures, so forth. Some might be able to make progress more quickly, easily, and some take more. Even at the Buddha's time, there are some who achieve arhat in the first meetings, some of them after some time, some of them at a later part of their life, some of them much later. So again, because of their past imprint and so forth, different other conditions, such as their past karma, imprint and so forth, exposure and so forth. But if someone is starting from the very beginning, who have no imprint, it would be very hard to say that nobody, the other side doesn't have imprint. But supposedly, theoretically, even someone has no imprint at all of the practice, the Dharma, of that, then of course it will take time. It might take time, and it might not be so easy. But again, what we have to learn, what we have to be aware is that, this journey is a long journey, many life journey. We shouldn't think that, is one lifetime journey. Through our practice, we try to improve a little better this time, At the very beginning in our life, when we have not met the Dharma, when we have not studied the Dharma, a lot of time we didn't even know anger was harmful. Attachment was harmful. Attachment is something negative. We are not even aware of that. Therefore, we kind of, embrace them. Instead of trying to overcome them, we embrace easily. But having met the Dharma and have learned a little bit, at least we know they are harmful. We are aware they are harmful. We are trying not to embrace completely, but trying to apply antidote to reduce them and to remove them. And so that itself is a progress. That itself, we have to rejoice. We have to rejoice. That we are making some progress, some improvements, And then, of course, we might be still affected easily by others' actions, behavior, attitude, and all of that, and circumstances, But again, even those when are affected, sometime through all the learning and study and practice, we are able to, we are affected by that, and maybe we might go upset, angry, whatever, emotions. But then later we think about it, and then, we think it's not right, it's not good, and we practice, and we can let it go without holding for a long time, So again, before maybe we hold very long time, very strongly. Now it is there, but it's not as strong and intense as before. It's not a long time. That itself is progress. That itself, it is a sign of progress. It's a sign of improvements, And then slowly, slowly, before it affect very easily. Slowly, slowly, it affect not so easily. It affects sometimes, it doesn't affect sometimes, it affects strongly sometimes not strongly, whereas before it affect all the time very strongly. And again, that is improvement. Slowly, slowly, becoming less affected by them. Slowly, slowly, not strongly, and affected by that. And that is how we slowly we improve. And we try to create the merit so that we can have more success in our meditation, in our practice. Engage in different practice to create the conducive, merit is the conducive condition that support our practice. And we try to purify the negative karma through different practices, because the negative karma are the obstacles for our spiritual growth and our practice. So again, whenever we get any opportunity possible, we try to do purification to reduce the negative karma, the obstacles for our practice. We try to engage in the virtues to create a conducive condition that merit. And we try to apply the practice meditation. Sometimes we are successful, sometimes not successful. You are angry and you are trying to let go of anger and you are meditating. Sometimes you are able to, after some time, you are able to feel more calm, peaceful, and let it go. Sometimes even after that, you cannot let it go in that moment. But maybe you might have to try again later time. And then maybe, and so, sometimes we are successful, sometimes not successful, and so forth. But that is slowly. So the main point is, even we might not be able to achieve nirvana in this life, but if we keep on working, starting to improve, and if you make able to climb one stairs, two stairs in this life, and create a condition for the next life to continue to climb the rest of the stairs. So it might take 1 lifetime, 5 lifetime, 100 lifetime, 1,000 lifetime, but slowly, each time trying to improve, progress. And if we are able to do that, then we don't have to be discouraged. Discouraged by that. By knowing that we are making progress, we will reach there eventually, because we are in the right direction and we are starting to climb the stairs. So I think it's important, sometimes to remind ourselves and to encourage ourselves and not be discouraged. And as Shantideva explains, there's nothing that will not become easy after having familiarized with that. At the moment, it seems difficult because we are not familiar with those practices, meditations. But if we keep on practicing, repeating those practice meditation, as we get more and more used to it, as we get more and more familiar with it, then slowly it becomes more easier. And so then it doesn't feel difficult. At the very beginning, it might feel difficult, but slowly, then one doesn't feel difficult. And so, I think that is the same. And we experience that in our life so many times, even everything's. When you are doing the job for the first time, you are not familiar, it's difficult. But after you have been doing that job for, 1 month, 2 months, and you know what to do, then it's not as difficult as before. And each time it becomes easier. And same with training the mind practice. Okay, yes. I think here there was one question here, yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. So in understanding the risks of attachment, and if we strive or aspire towards non-attachment, how do we not fall into the risk of being indifferent?
Yeah, I think sometimes there could be misunderstanding, being equanimity as being what was the other? Indifference is very different. Equanimity and indifference are two different things. Equanimity, indifference is what, as you mentioned, not concern, not care, what happens, what not happens. There's no concern, there's no care. Whereas equanimity is treating both in the same way, equally, both. So there is a difference. And similarly also, sometimes there's a fear if we don't have attachment, especially to a being, then that means we would not have concern, love, caring for others, whether it's your partner, whether it's your children, whether it's your parent, whether it's colleagues, But it's when you don't have attachments, but true love and true compassion, your care is more pure. Your concern is more pure. Your love is more pure. Your compassion is pure. So therefore, attachment is something to do with yourself. Of attachments, one with attachment, there's a sense of expectations, conditions, expectations. Whereas someone can have sense of care, love, compassion without expectations, without conditions. And that is what the Buddha encouraged us to develop. The true love, the true compassion is that unconditional love, unconditional compassion, unconditional care, concern, So therefore, if someone doesn't have attachment, it doesn't mean one will not have sense of concern, care, love, and compassion. Actually, it's the attachment that is the obstacles to have that such true love, compassion, true concern and care. Because, as I mentioned, the attachment is attachments. One, the nature of mind itself is a mistaken mind because it exaggerates and projects more qualities into the object than there is. That is what attachment does. When you have attachment to someone, then you see more positive quality than there is. And when your attachment decreases, then you started to see lacking those qualities you saw before and is no more there. Then you feel you are being deceived. Do you get it? I thought you were such a nice person. Now I find you are not a nice person anymore. Now you feel you deceive me. You presented me as such a nice person, and now I see you are not such nice persons. But actually what happens when you are attached, even though those negative qualities he or she has, due to your attachment, you become blind. You cannot see it. And because your attachment blinds you to see those negative qualities, and you don't see it, and when you have less attachment, now you are able to see it. And so, but instead of seeing it because of my attachment, then we feel like that person has changed or that person has become something. So that is what, it's not only person, it's also the object too. And so whatever object of attachment. So one, the attachment has this, is mistaken because it's exaggerating more quality into the object than there is. Secondly, is always rooted in that ignorance. Is rooted in the ignorance. And then the functioning of attachment is, again, bring harm or unpeaceful mind, When you have attachment, then as I mentioned before, then all the worry, fear, all arises of not getting, not accomplishing, or if you have already accomplished and gained, losing, being separated, losing that. So all this attachment give rise to those, restless mind, of such restless and unpeaceful mind of that. Whereas true love, compassion, true sense of care and concern, is rooted in wisdom instead of ignorance, is rooted in wisdom. And the functioning or the results or it gives rise to sense of inner peace, inner peace, inner joy, and it's not exaggerating. And so therefore, if you don't have attachment, it doesn't have to become indifference and non-concern and non-caring. It doesn't have to be that. Yeah. Any others? Yes, please.
You mentioned it takes many lifetime to reach.
Could take. It depends on the individuals, yeah. But
not within one lifetime, right? Not within one lifetime.
Some individuals, they could.
Okay, so
it's rare, but it could.
Okay, so next question is, if it takes many lifetime, right? So you have no control over where you want to rebirth. So your next life, you may not even hear or encounter Dharma. So you cannot continue to practice. So how?
Oh. Even though we cannot have full control, but we try to create the right cause and conditions to have a better conditions so that we can have the better condition to continue to practice the Dharma, So even though we might not have total control, but still there is an opportunity to practice. There's an opportunity to create certain cause and conditions. And so thereby, in terms of that, if we try to engage in the practice of moral discipline, and then, engage in other form of practices such as generosity, creating merit, purification, and so forth, and setting the intentions, to have such conditions, setting the intention, the motivations, and dedicating the virtues for that, and then, we can create cause and condition to have similar or even better conditions that we can continue to practice and carry on from where we have left this time. Yeah.
But there's still no guarantee that you.
Yeah, in between there is something like, I might create all of that and then I might get crazy, later. And then it is not guaranteed that next very life I will have that, even though all the cause and condition I have created doesn't get lost. I will experience the result of that in the futures, one of other futures. But maybe the next life, because before I die, I was so angry, upset, and I did something horrible things. So all the other cause condition that I've created before, that can be overlooked in a way, and that I don't experience the result of that. Instead, I experience the result of these previous actions, of all this anger, and with that anger that the horrible negative things that I do in that very moment could have a strong impact. So in that sense, then you don't have total control in that way. Yeah. Because I can create all cause and condition, but before I die or that, I could lose my mind, and then become very angry and do something horrible negative karma, create horrible negative karma possible. Even though I wish that doesn't happen, and even though that, but it could happen. You never know. So on that basis, then that's why you cannot guarantee from that point of view. Okay. Oh, there is questions, I think, back here also there back here. Oh, okay. We see some there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to ask if, let's say, in terms of, I think of white and black stone. Is it something that we can measure in terms of like the white and the black? It means that the virtuous is the white stone, while the black is the non-virtuous action. I think it somehow related to the other question, like is it measurable if, let's say, are we on the right track to everyday improve to the time where, okay, in our next lifetime we may reach the nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think sometimes you hear the term black karma or black actions and white karma and white actions in the virtues and non-virtuous and the virtues. I think it's just a term, sometimes black kind of representing negative and white representing something positive. So I think it's just a term they use. But, yeah, I think it is hard to measure the virtues and non-virtues, but I think the main thing is evaluating ourselves, and what was my thinking, what was my attitude before I met the Dharma. After I met the Dharma, has any attitude changes, has any thought changes? If there has been some positive changes, it's a sign that there is some improvement. That is how you can measure that there is some improvements. There is some progress. Sometimes it might be, sometimes the progress might be very subtle. Subtle, but it's happening. It's like a child. When you are with a parent, they are growing. Sometimes it's hard to know they are growing because they are growing so slowly. Then it's someone who have not seen for 5 years or 2 years, they say, oh, you have grown so big. Someone from outside, they can see they have grown up so much. But for someone who is always there, they might not see, even though there is growth, they might not see as that growth. Similarly, sometimes the change are happening, progress is happening, but they are very subtle. Sometimes we are not aware, but people around us might be aware. I've had friends who have told me, that he felt a little bit discouraged, feeling, that he hasn't made much progress, much improvements. He didn't see much improvement himself when he is trying to evaluate himself, analyze whether he has made any improvement or he couldn't. It was hard for him to see any improvement. But actually, his children recognized that, saw that. His children told him, "Daddy, you used to yell us a lot. Now you are not yelling us much." And then there are other practitioners where their other family members have noticed something positive change in them, even though sometimes they were not unable to see that change themselves. Sometimes that can be the case. Sometimes certain way of attitude, thinkings, after some time we take for granted, and then we think that that is how we have always been thinking, that we had that gratitude, but actually not, if you really think. One time or another, in States, someone came to patch me up, drive. And then he had many questions, and one of the questions was, again, that was he was finding difficult that any improvements or any progress that he has made. So then I asked him certain questions, I told him, every morning, do you try to think of all sentient beings? He said, yes. I try to generate bodhicitta motivation, think of all sentient beings. Do you dedicate for all sentient beings? Yes. Before you met Dharma, do you think of that? No. Doesn't think of even all human beings, forget of all sentient beings. There is no concept of that, and there is no thinking about that. So now, whether you are able to make big progress, but your attitude is you at least think of all sentient beings, not only yourself, your families, the human, but all sentient beings, how, even though we might not have bodhicitta, but at least we think about them. We dedicate for all sentient beings, our virtues, our merit. That itself is to me, that is a big progress, big improvement from being just about yourself to think of all sentient beings. So, so as we came in, so as I cautioned him many things in that, then he realized, yes, he has. There's a lot of things that he has made progress. But sometimes one is unable to be aware of oneself, And so basically, that those are how we try to measure, how we used to think before, how we used to behave before, how we used to do things, and how now we do that. And by seeing that, then that is how we can see, how we can measure whether there has been some improvement or not improvements, And then it's all about creating the cause conditions, and there's not 100% guaranteed. Like, as I already give this answer, I create all cause condition, practice, moral discipline, all of this and that to have a high rebirth as a human beings, to meet the Dharma and create and continue to practice. But as I mentioned, at the time of death or before death, I could be bothered by some negative thoughts, and then I could create such a horrible negative karma that could influence the next rebirth, where I might not have that conditions. And I have to wait some lifetime to enjoy the result of the condition I've created before. That is possible, but that shouldn't stop us from creating the cause and conditions. It's just like in everyday life. There's no guarantee I try to do everything right to be healthy, but it's no guarantee that even I do that, I will be healthy, you know. Who knows, what kind of DNA or genetic I'm carrying that could affect me, or some other things can happen. But that shouldn't stop you from doing what is right to be healthy. And that is same within someone when they engage in investing, business or job, whatever, there is no guarantee that will, but still that doesn't stop from doing that, and so I think that is same. That is what I would say. Yeah. Yes.
Geshe,
Sis-
thank you so
yeah.
much. Okay, actually it's related to the answers that you gave in some earlier questions. We are Singaporeans, so we expect results immediately, right? And we expect big results. So it's helpful that you mentioned this is a long journey that will take many, many lifetimes. And obstacles will definitely arise. Yeah, so I think for us as beginners, what advice would you give us that as we embark on this journey, no matter what comes, not to give up? What advice would you give for us not to succumb to the idea, this is just too much hard work, I rather enjoy samsara, and not give up. Yeah, thank you.
I can't give advice because I also want to enjoy the samsara myself. I myself too much in samsara. I think it is not only Singaporean, I think it is the modern world. I think the modern world that you grow up in, everything fast. The people become, the whole society, people become less patient than they used to be. I think it's just the pace of the modern world. And so definitely, we become more impatient. We want, as you said, result faster, bigger result, and so forth. So we have to remember the stories of the rabbit and tortoise, turtles, And with that understanding of the stories, then we try to be like the turtles. Steady, even is very slow, and doesn't seem moving very fast. It might seem it never can reach there, but it never give up. It's steady, keep on going, and then it reach there. Whereas the rabbit, they thought, oh, I can go there because he can run and jump past, and then sleep, thinking I can catch up this very easily, and then sleep and left behind. And that is what we also see in the monastery too. I think probably in schools as too. Some of the brightest students, sometimes they take it too easy. Oh, I can study easily because they are bright, and they don't. And then after some time, they are left behind. There are some students who are not so bright, and they feel like they have to work harder, and they keep on working harder. At the end of 20 years, 25 years, they become the brightest ones. So similar, that is with that kind of understanding, I think consistent and it doesn't mean, sometimes is again, it's not about choosing enjoyment and your practice. While you enjoy, you can still practice. It doesn't mean, if you practice, then you have to give up all your enjoyment. Do you get it? That is what we talk about, the whole thing, You can still have all of that without attachments. If you don't have attachments, then those are not a problem. If you have an attachment, then that becomes the problems. So sometimes when you think about practice, when you think about renunciations, then sometimes we feel like that means I have to give up all this enjoyment. But that is not the case. So that is one thing that we have to remember. That is one thing we have to remember. But at the same time, that shouldn't be excuse. Thinking, doing all this samsaric enjoyment and thinking that I can transform into the practice. If you can really transform, that it will be wonderful, and that shouldn't be problems. But at the same time, sometimes we can be totally lost off the track, off the directions, off the track. So those are the kind of balance, and be more honest with ourselves. And I think, also even I've seen even in certain societies, or certain communities, they like to have profit instantly and big profit. Unless they have big profit or instant profit, they will not invest, they will not do that. Then there are certain community society who work very hard and who make small profit, but they keep on doing that, and slowly they become over the years, they become very successful. I see in India, and a lot of Indians like that, whose profit is a small margin, but they do a lot, and they continue to do that, and eventually they become very successful. In my community, it's the other way around. They need to feel, big profit, and if they don't, and then it's hard to have a success in long term. And so that's similarly that in a practice. Also, as long as you are in the right direction, you are in going that, even it seems slow, but as long as you are making little progress, as long as you are noticing little progress, making little transformation, then you are in the right path, and you should be rejoicing, you should be grateful, you should encourage yourself, joyful, and continue to practice. Okay? Then do the dedications.
Please turn to page 246 from Master Shantideva's Bodhicharya Vatara. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the suffering of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or be belittled with a mind down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sound.
May whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all the medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease there are in the world, they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Please refer to the insert, the long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewels, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Prayer for the swift return of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang and Father and Son, along the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite land, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now.
Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you owe the more patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request.
While striving
Single-pointedly for the sake of these victorious one teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for the mother living beings, you certainly departed peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of blessings of the ocean
of the three jewels, and
the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good sleep.